What's going on, everybody? This is David here, back with a brand new video. I know it's been some time. My last video was after the Raiders loss and stuff. And, I started a new job, so I had to work a lot of Sundays, and I didn't get to watch a whole lot of the Bronco games. I did see the Arizona game, the game we won, and I did see the Rams debacle that ended up being Nathaniel Hackett's last game as Broncos head coach, as he was fired the next day. And we had Jerry Roseberg for our final two games of this season. And first of all, I just want to talk about the game on Sunday, which I didn't get to see, but I did see the highlights. Score was Broncos 31, Chargers 28. And it's like I say, if there is just one thing we know, we could at least beat the Chargers at home. I was glad we did, because not only because I hate the Chargers, because I do a lot, but it was also because I don't want all three of our division rivals to sweep us this year. I didn't want that to happen. So I was just so glad that we beat the Chargers, and now the offseason begins. If we go back to the last time the Broncos were this bad, the last time they lost 12 games in a season, that was back in 2010. And I found two parallels between, not two, but more, a few parallels between both those teams. Number one was our schedule. We played the exact same opponents this season that we did in 2010, with the only exception being the Carolina Panthers. But that was our extra game, so they don't really count because the extra game didn't exist back then. We're only in the second season of the extra game. We played our division rivals twice a year as usual. We also played the AFC South is who we played this year, like we did that year. We played the NFC West that year like we did this year, and we played the Ravens and Jets that year like we did this year, and we got the extra game being the Panthers. So that's one of the things. The other thing is we only won one game against our division foes that year, and that one game we did win. However, the only difference is we beat the Chiefs at home that year, and this year we beat the Chargers, and that we fired our coach late in the season that year, which we fired Josh McDaniels in December that year, and we fired Nathaniel Hackett after the Rams lost this year. So when you look at, those are the two similarities. And now the question is going to be who's going to be the new head coach? I mean, when I did see Nathaniel Hackett install the discipline he did and make the changes he made, I started to like the guy. Like when he gave it the play calling and gave it to Clint Kubiak. And then when he released Melvin Gordon, I mean, those were decisions that Vic Fangio would have never made or admit he did anything wrong and would have kept doing it. But, sad to say his approaches were just not winning. And then all of a sudden we do so much better under Jerry Roseberg. I mean, the Kansas City game was a game we could have easily won. And the Charger game, we did win. But we're 5-12, and we got a lot of positivity to optimism going forward. Now, I'm not one of those guys that's going to sit there and talk about all this optimism for this next offseason, because what I've learned is just don't say nothing until the season actually happens. The Broncos are going to be looking for a head coach, and there are many options right now available. And the number one guy I want is going to be Jim Harbaugh. Even though there was an interview with him, and that there was speculation that he was going to stay in Michigan, we don't know yet. But it's like I said, what Jim Harbaugh did in San Francisco when he took over the 49ers back in 2011, he turned them back into a winner. And you know how he did it? Well, number one, he wasn't a stubborn coach. He saw the player, the talent he had on his team, and he used the talent to the extreme, and that's how the team got the win. But one thing he did do was he replaced like 4 or 5 starters on their defense that year. I think he replaced that whole secondary is what he did. because that's when they signed Carlos Rogers that and Tonte Whitner, and then he replaced, I think, was it Takeo Spikes with Navarro Bowman. He drafted Aldon Smith, and even though it was Paris Harrelson was the starter that year, Aldon Smith really went out, got like 14 sacks that year and 49. He he put the right starters on that field, and guess what? That team performed. And then on offense, he saw the unproductivity out of his two most dynamic offensive playmakers, Frank Gore and Vernon Davis. So he gave them the ball more, and they stuff happened, and the teams won. And then his second year, he got them to the NFC Championship in his first year. Second year, he replaced Alex Smith with Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick led them to a Super Bowl. And, in his third year, he gave Kaepernick the job, and they went back to the NFC Championship game. But by 2014, the organization was totally in, like, turmoil. They weren't going to re-extend him. And, he just needed out of San Francisco. But he'd be a great hire, and Sean Payton might be making a return to the NFL. I'd love to have Sean Payton here. Another guy, too, that turned the lowly Saints franchise into winners, and he did it by signing Drew Brees and making Drew Brees play the football Drew Brees wanted. Because, be honest with you, he wasn't happy in San Diego. He had LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, and they ran the ball too much with LT. And when he went to New Orleans, when they went out there and they became a passing football team, and he let Drew Brees play his style of game. He didn't have, because that showed you right there that he's not the coach that, it's got to be my way or the highway, the way that a lot of coaches are, like, and those are the coaches who don't succeed in the NFL, the my way or the highway kind of guys. And then there's Dan Quinn, who, led the Falcons to the Super Bowl in his second year. And by year 3, he led them back to the playoffs. But, the team he had in Atlanta was just truly falling apart. But if you ask me, getting one of these coaches could definitely help bring a winner to this football team. And why I would like these coaches too, because they are the kind of coaches that are going to sit there, talk with their front office, let them know their front office, no, we need to do something with the players we have on this roster. And one thing that's one thing Jim Harbaugh did in San Francisco and Peyton did for so many years in New Orleans. He went out there and told them, hey, we're gonna fix the problem. And the Broncos' problem for so long has been their offensive line. We need a real offensive line out there. We got to revamp this offensive line because, face it, the guys you keep running out there we're just not working. So I'm glad that we were able to beat the Chargers. I'm glad that, and now I just hope that we could get one of these coaches that could help turn us back into a winning football team. And this offseason, our front office, look at our offensive line, because our offensive line is just horrible, and it's going to go nowhere no matter who we put in at quarterback. And I don't even think the next coach could sit there and succeed with it. But you know what? I just hope that this offseason, with our first round pick, we get an offensive lineman and we get a tackle, and we look at free agency for more offensive linemen that are available, some good guards. Because, Dalton Reiser's played his last game, and I just think he is just a terrible offensive lineman. He has regressed since his rookie year. And I would think we should also replace Graham Glasgow, who was just not a good either. So let me know what you think, how the win made you, and Phil, and who will be our new coach. This is David. I'm out. Peace.